on your TOK essays, however, so therefore, it would be helpful for us to talk about this way of knowing within the TOK context, so that on your essays you're able to discuss this way of knowing in a TOK way. Which way of knowing do you think we're going to talk about today? Way. You don't know. What way of knowing do you think we're going to talk about today, Rose? What?
Faith.
Faith? No, not faith. We talked about faith a little bit when we were talking about ethics, remember? No, not faith. What's another one? Yolanda? Any guesses?
Emotion.
You're right! Emotion! That's our objective today. Our objective today is we're going to discuss emotion as a way of knowing. It's almost dead. How many of you are referencing emotion in your TOK essays? Not many of you. Well, you may after this. It may probably because we haven't had a chance to discuss it. And often it's talked about in counter to reason, right? Reason versus emotion. Those two are often pitted against each other. So if you're doing a to what extent essay, and on the one hand you're looking at reason, you may wish to look at emotion on the other hand. Okay, emotions! Are they obstacles to knowledge? That's the question. Who thinks that emotion is an obstacle to knowledge? Who thinks emotion is a good way to know? And who thinks it's an obstacle? Who thinks it's a good way of knowing? A couple of you? Who thinks emotion may be an obstacle to knowledge? Alright, well that's what we're going to discuss today. Alright. First of all, let's see how many emotions you know. Everyone, stand up. Gather around, kids. Come on. Come on. Come on, Elena. Come on, Shiny. Okay, actually go, well, okay. Go to a place where you can see the projection. And look at this picture of all these characters expressing various feelings and emotions. Which emotions can you name?
Thirsty.
Is thirsty an emotion?
I thought it.
What do you think? Is thirsty an emotion?
No.
Why not?
It's the state of the body.
It's the state of the body. What's an emotion?
It's a feeling.
Thirsty
Expression.
feeling, yes.
I feel thirsty.
Expression of the mind, you said.
But you can say I feel thirsty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Feel thirsty.
Yeah.
So, but thirsty is not an emotion, even though you can feel it. Okay, let's go on. What emotions can you name here?
I think yes, nervous, embarrassed.
Embarrassed.
Or heartbroken.
Heartbroken.
Yeah.
What else?
Scared.
Scared. Good.
Anxious.
Anxious? How does Sachiye feel?
Tired.
Angry.
That's.
Now let's talk about it. Do we think these are emotions or just states of the body, as Helena put it? What about heartbroken? Is heartbroken an emotion?
Yeah.
Or is it a state of the body? Well, we call it heartbroken. Oh, I see. What about scared? Is scared an emotion?
Yeah.
Okay. What about tired?
No.
Yes. The state of the body is.
You think it's state of the body? You think it's like thirsty? But you think it might be an emotion.
Yes, because sometimes you may not physically feel tired, but you may emotionally feel
Jaded. Overwhelmed.
Oh, okay, good. What about angry? Is angry an emotion?
Definitely.
Definitely yes, you say. How does Yuta feel? Yuta's over on the light.
Feel sick.
Is sick an emotion?
Well, depends on what the situation you're in. Like, if something makes you sick, like something very disgusting, then that's a kind of feeling. But if it's a physical state, then it's just a symptom that
Okay.
you are sick.
So you could say ill could be a synonym for disgusted.
Yeah.
Is disgust an emotion?
Yeah. I think.
Well, if we look at the next slide, everyone say goodbye to the snake. You didn't even talk about June over there, or Taka. That's me. Conventional scientific wisdom recognizes six classical emotions. What are they, Sean?
Happy, surprised, afraid, disgust, angry, and sad.
Okay. Do you agree that these are all emotions? You're nodding. Okay, good. Well, interestingly, Glasgow scientists recently concluded that there are only 4 primal emotions. Only 4 emotions. What are they? Dream.
Happy, sad, afraid or surprised, angry or disgust.
Yeah. Here, afraid and surprised is sort of one emotion. And angry and disgusted is sort of one emotion. It's one emotion that we call sometimes angry and call sometimes disgusted. They did an experiment where they had people try to identify emotions based upon pictures of people expressing emotions. And many times people who looked angry, some people said they looked angry, some people said they looked disgusted. Same with afraid and surprised. Some people said they looked afraid, some people said they looked surprised. Right?
Where Glasgow?
Well, Glasgow is a city in Scotland, and these are scientists who come from Glasgow. And here's the website down here. Here's the reference. But okay, so look at me. Tell me how do I feel?
Surprised.
See? All right, so their experiment suggests the differences between surprise and fear, and between anger and disgust, develop later more for social reasons than survival does. That for socially, being afraid and being surprised might be different, but deep down, it's really the same feeling. What do you think about that? Do you think we only have 4 emotions?
That's impossible.
Why is that impossible?
But sometimes you can combine 2 different emotions and then there's another.
Mixed
Oh, we have mixed feelings, mixed emotions. Okay.
But Glasgow scientists are measuring the emotion based on your facial experience, not based on what you really feel.
Okay. So it's objective, not subjective. What do you feel?
Feel confused.
Oh, is that
Yes.
well, there could be more emotions. We could have social emotions, emotions that are derived from those 4 or from those 6 or whatever, that gain more details or gain more specificity within a social context. What are some of those social emotions, Anne?
Contact, pride, embarrassment, envy, gratitude, guilt, jealousy, shame, sympathy.
Okay. Many of these are similar, aren't they?
No, I don't get the difference between envy and jealousy.
Okay. I don't know, maybe the difference is that you can be envious of somebody who has something that you don't have, but you can be jealous of somebody who wants what you do have. I don't know, honestly. What of those 4 primal emotions, what would envy or jealousy be based on?
Can we go back to the previous slide?
Does it come from happiness, sadness, afraid surprisedness, or angry disgustedness?
I think it's a combination of sad and afraid.
Sad and afraid.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Could it come from anger? Like when you feel envious, don't you feel a little angry?
Yeah.
You're angry because somebody has something you don't want that you want. Could you feel envy or jealous if there were no other people in the world? If there was nobody, just you, could you feel envy?
I'll feel empty.
Empty, yeah. So that's why these are social emotions.
Feel envy when I'm envy for myself.
Envy for your, I don't know if that's possible. All right, let's go to the next one. There can also be emotions regarding the future. So emotions that are specific towards thoughts about the future. What are these, Rose?
Worry, ambition, determination, drive, passion for goal,
Anxiety. Anxiety. So what do you think about these? Shiny. Do you think that these are emotions that you can only really have about the future?
Not the only ones.
Mm-hmm. Say more.
Huh? Oh, I think they can be
There could be more. All right. Such as? Did you have an idea? Not now, but there could be more. Okay. If you did not have a sense of future, could you have any of these emotions? Which one?
worry.
Worry. Okay. When you're worried, though, aren't you worried about something that might happen?
Yeah.
Worry about something that already happened.
Yeah.
Well, if you worry about something that did happen, are you
guilt.
worried about what happened, or are you worried that somebody might find out what happened?
Well, I think somebody might.
Okay, which one is guilt? Yeah.
Facts on the future.
Sorry?
Like influence of what have already happened to the future.
To the future. Okay, so there's still a future part. Yeah, guilt. What about worry and guilt? It seems like those two are similar. Guilt may be social, worry may be future. What basic emotion are they based on? Worry and guilt. Afraid? Okay. Good. All right, so what do you think, though? Is this a good way to talk about emotions? That there's these 4 or 6 basic emotions, and that these can become more complicated within a social context or within a temporal context? Does that make sense to you as a way of talking about emotions?
No, but I think, for example, we also can be worried about the present. I mean, if different parts of yourself conflict with each other, you'll be worried.
You're worried, okay.
You'll be anxious.
All right, you're worried you have some problem. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Anybody else? You said no.
Because what we're doing right now is like using all these words which are created by human to define those emotions we have. But like we ourselves don't really know how many emotions we have because that's the only word we have. Like the limited words we have to describe those feelings. But somehow like a lot of times I just can't really find words for it. Yeah.
Does this, I mean, it seems like we're using language and reason to understand emotion, right? We're using defining words and we're rationalizing by putting things into categories. Does that seem like a good way to understand another way of knowing by using other ways of knowing? Can we understand language and, can we understand emotion through language and reason? Can we understand reason through emotion?
Maybe.
Or can we just try to understand emotion through emotion?
We can't really understand emotion.
You can't understand emotion. What can you do with emotion?
I can have emotion, but I don't understand
I
it.
think that's using intuition to understand.
You can use intuition. How so?
I feel worried. How do I know I'm worried? Because intuition think I'm worried.
Okay. Sure.
But I think we can only be aware of our emotion and then figure out the reason behind it.
Okay. Good. Good. Joseph, you've been awfully quiet. Any thoughts on the nature of emotions here? Well, how can we understand our emotions? Should we understand our emotions?
We use language to understand our emotion, but actually we don't really understand emotion. If we don't have language, we feel worry or like something negative emotion. We will only feel like uncomfortable. But you can express what kind of emotion you have. So I think language is very important for us to understand emotion. Actually, language is very important for us to understand everything.
Okay. Kevin, do you think it's necessary to understand emotions, or should we just have emotions?
I think emotion is an expression of our thoughts. So, is necessary for us to understand what emotion and
Okay, good. So emotion is an expression of our thoughts. Wade, do you think there's any problems with dwelling too much on defining our emotions? Is that what we should do with them? Try to figure out what they are? What should we do with our emotions if we have them?
I think we should analyze them and try our best to not to have negative.
Okay, try not to have negative emotions. And often we try to understand things that are problems so we can do something about them. Is that why we try to understand emotions? Because they're essentially problematic?
I think we cannot define emotion as a problematic because emotions are just temporary and it changes all the time. It's not also it's nothing wrong to be sad or feel sorrowful. Afterward, it changes along the time.
Well, it might be that emotions could be problematic, right? Let's talk about that now. Emotions could be problematic. They could.
That's why we're talking about emotion in the opposite, putting it in the opposite direction by comparing to reason. So it can be problematic in this way, but I think it's not appropriate to just say like emotion is problematic.
Well, if emotions were problematic, let's talk about how they might be. Emotions could be an obstacle. Here in the background there's a picture of a guy who's obviously feeling some emotion. How's he feeling? What do you think? Dream, what do you think? How's he feeling?
Nervous.
He's feeling nervous maybe? How do you think he's feeling, Rose? Heartbroken perhaps? How could he be feeling, Kevin? Guilty. And what's he doing? He's smoking. Obviously, his emotions have so impaired his reason that he's doing something that he knows, or he should know, is just going to kill him. That's bad. And yet,
Maybe it's because
the emotions are an obstacle to proper, clear thought. Right?
But some people do, like, it's not about emotion. It's like, even their reasoning sometimes tell them, like, I can't do that.
Well, let's talk about that. Okay, it's possible that emotion could disturb or get in the way of properly using other ways of knowing. For example, sense perception. Have you ever heard of like emotional coloring?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's emotional coloring? Well,
it's like throw on some color and just looking at things.
yeah, you look at things through rose-colored glasses. Rose-colored glasses. Yeah, so sometimes our emotions color our perceptions and cause us to see things perhaps not as they really are. Or perhaps we pick out the thing, like if we really like somebody, right? We might pick out the things that we like about them and not see the things that others say are faulty about that person, right? Or if we're in a really bad mood, right? We might see everything as negative. Does that ever happen to you, Dream?
No.
No. Good. So that's what emotional coloring could be. Can anybody share an anecdote or that maybe happened to you, that your emotions interfered with your sense perception, caused you to see things perhaps not as they really are?
Just like when you were walking along a very dark alley in the cold December night, and like the light was very dim, and you saw a shadow of yourself on the wall, and it's so huge and tall that it frightens you. And since then, every time we saw that alley, whenever it's a sunny day or a rainy day or a beautiful day, you will still think, oh, that's a creepy alley.
Okay. So your emotions have impaired your judgment about that alley. Good. Another way in which emotion could distort a way of knowing is that emotion could distort our reasoning. Like you were saying, Vicky, or like you may be saying, perhaps this guy has reasons to smoke, or maybe he's allowing his emotions to create reasons for him to smoke. Yeah, so you can sometimes rationalize things in order to justify your emotions. You have an emotional desire, or you have an emotional aversion, and so you create a reason to have that thing, or to get away from that thing. Has anyone ever done that?
Emotional eater.
Okay, explain.
Because somehow we have our reasoning is telling us we shouldn't be eating things that is like, for example, like junk food, and it's not good for our health. But somehow we're feeling sad or overly excited. We just feel the urge of eating a huge amount of junk food, and then we would just let the emotion take over our reasoning.
And how can you rationalize eating junk food? How can your emotions make it seem like, yeah, that's logical, I should do that?
Emotion might say like, oh, it's a one-time thing, I'm not going to do it the second time.
Sure.
Or I was thinking like, maybe just one bite, then after one bite it's like, oh, maybe take the second bite.
You can say, science has shown that sweets relieve endorphins, and endorphins are good for you. Therefore, I should eat junk food in order to get healthy. It's a rationalization. Or you might not do your studies at night because you don't want to study. You want to play computer games, even though you know you should do your studies. So you could rationalize that. You could say, if I do my studies, I'm just going to get more anxious and more tired, and tomorrow I won't be effective in class, and in fact, I'll learn less. So if I want to know more, I should do my homework. Right? Rationalizing. Another thing, language can be distorted through our emotions as a way of knowing, particularly allowing others to know what we're saying or feeling through our emotions. Our emotions can make us use strong language, can sometimes make us say things we don't maybe mean. And so other people think we think something, they've reached a knowledge claim, oh, so-and-so thinks this, when in fact you really don't. You allow your language to be influenced by your emotions. Has that ever happened to anybody? Who can share an anecdote? No. Who's ever said, I hate you to somebody, but you didn't really hate them, like your parents? Yeah. So that's one way in which emotion could perhaps be an obstacle to knowledge, because it could obfuscate other ways of knowing. We also tend to rationalize our pre-existing prejudices. We have emotional prejudices for and against things, which we rationalize, right? We allow our powerful emotion to give us a biased perspective on things, which then leads to fallacious reasoning, which then leads to emotional language being used to support those reasons, which then could lead to faulty conclusions and outcomes. So we could even bring all of these together. Emotions could influence our reason and our language and our sense perception all at once. Emotions could also lead to irrational behavior. For example, the eating of the junk food or the not studying. Has anyone ever behaved irrationally because of their emotions? Has anyone ever behaved irrationally because of their emotions? Irrationally, non-rationally, badly, poorly? Yes? Can you share with us, Joseph? No. Okay. Has your friend ever done anything? Okay. All right, so what do you think about that? Do you think emotions can sometimes be obstacles to knowledge? Well, many people throughout history have also thought that, and many philosophers. That includes the Stoics. The Stoics were a group of thinkers from ancient Rome, well, it originated in ancient Greek times, but became prominent during ancient Roman days. And in fact, during the height of the Roman Empire, most people advocated Stoicism. Although they did have a belief in the Roman gods, it was Stoicism, which was more fundamentally their the philosophical or religious way in which they lived their lives. They believed that stoically that you could attain happiness if, through reason, you kind of saw the patterns in the universe and saw the ways in which things were going and submitted yourself to those ways. Submitted yourself to the ways of living that reason revealed to you. Thereby you would be in accord with the universe, and at the end you would be happy. But you needed reason to do that. And emotion, huh?
That is so pathetic.
Well, it kind of makes sense. But emotion got in the way of that. Emotion clouded your judgment. Emotion clouded your reasoning. And therefore they advocated a belief against emotions, or at least against negative emotions, strong emotions, that kept you from understanding through reason the nature of the universe, the way of the world. I'm going to give you guys now a little handout about Stoicism. Actually, you can just pass this around this way. Yeah, you can go back to your seats. Here you go. Take this with you. A little handout about Stoicism. It's our homework to read this tonight for tomorrow's class. You don't need to read it now. Thank you, Matt. Yes. Thank you. But go ahead, let's just go ahead and read the introduction paragraph about this. Would you read it for us all, please, Helena?
Stoicism was one of the two principal schools of the Hellenistic era. The other, originally founded by Zeno in 4th century BC, and Stoicism later developed and changed into forms designated Middle Stoa and later Stoa, also known as Roman Stoicism. This article deals primarily with original Greek Stoicism.
Okay, so Stoicism was a school of thought that originated in ancient Greek, that became prominent in Rome, originated by Zeno. Now Zeno, he began teaching his beliefs at a part of the Athenian agora that was called the painted porch, or in Greek, the Stoa Poikile. And so that's why it became called Stoicism, because that's where the Stoics would meet and discuss their thoughts. I just want you to imagine that. I want you to imagine that you were living, that you were living back in ancient Greek days, that you were an Athenian citizen, and that you would go to the agora, on weekends, and you would meet with other Greek citizens, and what would you do there? You would walk around and you would discuss philosophy. Right? You see these guys, how they're just like walking around and discussing philosophical ideas. Like Plato, like Aristotle, like Socrates. That's just what people did back then, huh? They were surrounded by this beautiful architecture, on this beautiful hilltop, and they just walked around discussing philosophical notions. Doesn't that sound wonderful to you? To whom does that sound wonderful? I want to do that. I want to get time. I want to be a Doctor Who. Go back, talk philosophy in Agora.
I think it's because they have nothing to do, so they're so boring.
But they seem so exciting. If you read the dialogues, the Platonic dialogues, that's what they were just doing all the time. They would just meet and say, hey, this is so-and-so. He had an interesting idea yesterday. Talk about your interesting idea to Socrates. And the Socrates would say, I haven't thought about this. And he'd go, and it didn't seem like they were bored. It seemed like that's what they really enjoyed doing.
Well, there's another way of doing this.
How was another way?
Go back to St. John's.
Well, another way of doing this is for you guys to close your eyes and imagine that you are ancient Greek citizens. Everyone close your eyes. Close your eyes. I want you to imagine that you are ancient Greek citizens and that you are in the Agora and you're surrounded by all this beautiful architecture, this beautiful setting of the world, and you're meeting your friends, and you're walking around and you're just talking about deep thoughts, allowing your imagination and your sense of reason and your sense of inquiry into the nature of the universe to wander. Now, open your eyes. Here you all are, in the Agora. Everyone stand up. So here we are, we're in the Agora. We're surrounded by columns and temples and beautiful architecture. And we've just been listening to a Roman. Somehow we've gone further in time. That's okay. We've listened to a Roman named Marcus Aurelius, who wrote the Meditations and who was also a Stoic. Can you please pass these up? Can you pass these along? Okay. But everybody has one copy. So this is an excerpt from Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, in which he discusses some of his thoughts about Stoicism. The title is On Anger and Empathy. I want you now to choose a friend. Choose a friend. Take a friend. Find a friend. Does everyone have a friend? Everyone find a friend? Come on, find your friend. And I want you to stand next to your friend. And, maybe hook arms. Yeah, very good. Okay, come on. You don't have to hook arms, but maybe. And I want you to pretend that you're just walking around the Stoic Poike in the Agora, and you're reading this and you're discussing these ideas with your friend. All right, so the first one, come on, let's start walking around. Start walking around. The first one. Remember the close bond between yourself. Discuss these ideas with each other. Oh, keep walking. Keep walking. So just one step. That's fine. One Don't just read, also stop and talk about what you're reading, okay? Be sure to stop and discuss.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Alright, boys and girls, welcome back. Okay, so let's try to use references from the reading when possible, or just use your own ideas. That's okay too. Do try to develop your ideas with reasons, with explanations, with examples, or with quotes to discuss these questions. According to Marcus Aurelius, how may we subdue our emotions? And do you think it's really necessary to do so?
I think according to Marcus, he said that when you feel angry, you can tell yourself when you, like human life is transient and only lasts a moment. It won't be long before we all have been laid to rest. And we should also realize that we are not really being harmed by other people's actions. So by thinking that way, we may subdue our emotion, especially like about just the feeling of being angry. And I think it's not really necessary because I feel every emotion exists because of some sort of reason. For example, like anger. In my opinion, I feel it's sometimes it can be an alert. If you're feel angry about something, that means like you are not agree with the idea, and it's an appropriate expression of your own feeling, and that way people can be alerted that like you yourself is not really content with the things they're saying. So I think it serves a social purpose. So I think they have function, shouldn't be subdued.
This is Jordan. I'm just taking notes. You guys discuss.
Well, I think they make a very nice point. However, I personally believe that sometimes we should subdue our emotions. Just like here Marcus said on the second page, paragraph 9, he said, kindness is an irresistible force so long as it's genuine and without any fake smiles or true facadeness. Even the most stubborn attitude is nothing if you just keep being nice to the person concerned. Well, this probably, I think it's kind of similar to Chinese Confucianism, which is like, if you're kind to people, people will be kind to you. Well, I think that's a very idealistic and a peaceful state that we human beings should pursue in these days. Like, those we don't desire, such as war and disgust and like genocide, they were all triggered by hatred and maybe jealousy or envy, because like they feel the difference between people, and they just feel like they cannot contain this kind of difference and the discrepancy, so they have to like eliminate some of the very opposite ideas. So that is hugely emotionally based, and it's because of their emotion, this kind of like irrational and angriness, like that make them feel like desperately want to eliminate someone and make the world like not a good place. So therefore, I think to subdue this kind of emotion, like to feel like we are all equal and we have to be nice to each other, be good, and we have to live in peace, is a very good kind of mindset.
I do agree with Shelley. In a lot of circumstances, we should be remain calm and just not be angry. However, I think sometimes we can really control our anger, even though we may not express it like through our facial expression or our gestures. So I feel like sometimes when we're subduing these kind of emotion, like anger and frustration, it's kind of hypocritic. We're smiling and like saying nice things, like just expressing kindness towards some people. However, deep down in heart, we still feel angry and frustrated. I think that's a like psychological problem of human, is that we will always speak our true feeling, like the inverse theory, like our id will always suppressed by our super ego, because of the moral standards we have, because we are concerning about other people's feeling. However, our true thought may not be that way. So I feel like it really depends on the situation. Like when you're talking about wars and like this kind of like anger, I think it should be subdued because it really interferes with people's welfare in life. However, I think sometimes like when you do need to express your own feelings, it's kind of convenient just to express your anger or frustration through your emotion.
And I think what's printing here are all good ways for us to subdue our emotions. But I think it is not really necessary for us to subdue our emotions all the time. Because just imagine that if we really live in an idealistic, harmonious world, it will be terrifying sometimes. That everyone is kind to each other, everyone smiles all the time. But it's kind of like we lose other part of our emotions. But emotions like envy and anger are also a part of ourselves. So there's no reason for us to subdue these emotions all the time. Just feeling angry is not wrong. It itself is not wrong at all. And sometimes I think this kind of feelings can solve the problems more quickly.
Yes, I think, personally speaking, it can help people sometimes. Like, there is scientific research indicating that women can live longer elderly than men because they can express their emotions more than men do. So I think it kind of helps us release what we feel bad of, and also gain others' happiness and make it stronger as a kind of support to our health. But sometimes, contradictory speaking, for patients, they can't just express their emotion because it may cause like high blood pressure, or so it's really depends on the situation, different situation.
Actually, I think women can live longer mostly because of the menstrual cycle. I don't know. I have a dream about one sentence here. It says anger is just as much a sign of weakness as struggling with tears. In both cases, we're giving into suffering.
Where are you?
There's no. It's underneath a 9, but it's not really 9. Maybe it's 10. Like the last sentence of 10th paragraph. And I feel this person, Marcus, is very biased about like the way he's categorizing feelings or emotions into different categories. It's like anger is weakness, and also crying, like tears, also is a sign of weakness. However, I don't think it's very true in real life. Sometimes those expressions can actually like be a sign of strength. For example, like we see a lot of like documentary about wars. We see those warriors like fighting and just defending their homeland. They were sometimes crying because they're so emotionally attached to like the thing they're doing, and they feel proud of themselves. And I don't think like these tears will be a sign of weakness. Also, like some anger or even hatred can't really be called like a negative emotion just because they might potentially lead to something, like the consequence might be bad. It doesn't really make them a negative emotion. I think the way we should see emotions is like we should really take them by circumstances. We should like choose to subdue or not to subdue our emotion. Depends on the actual social situation.
Well, it sounds what you were saying about the war example in particular seemed to be showing how anger could give us strength. But he's not saying that anger makes us weak. He's saying, read the quote again that you read, anger is just as much a sign of weakness as bubbling with tears. In both cases, we're giving in to suffering. What does he mean by that? And why would he think that? Somebody else respond. Maybe you gentlemen respond. Or one of you ladies with this question. What do you think he means by that? What does it mean to give in to suffering? I'm going to pick on somebody. Kevin! What does it mean to give in to suffering? Not sure what that means. Well, it seems to mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Make yourself suffer.
Sorry?
It's kind of like it's kind of make yourself suffer.
Make yourself suffer.
It's like
Well,
giving up struggle, like just giving.
it's like giving up, right?
Yeah, it's like giving up. I will just suffer.
Yeah. So you're giving in to the suffering. Like you feel the suffering, and you give into it. You say, okay, you win. I'll let myself feel you. Is that weakness? What do you think, Sean? Is that weakness?
It could be kind of weakness, or it could be a scheme sometimes.
Okay, talk about that.
Because as you said, it was forego, so it could be a weakness. But if that's like that forego is intentional, it could it could be a scheme then. Like you tend to give up, but you would come back again.
So you could be giving in intentionally for some reason.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Anybody think of a situation where that would be a good tactic?
I don't think it really fits, but it's kind of similar. Some people might find suffering or just feeling upset as a source of inspiration, especially for those who think. Yeah, that too. For writers, for example, they may find inspirations in suffering, like Dostoevsky. Also, Kafka do like a lot of dark, twisted things, and he find loneliness a source of inspiration. So, in that case, I find maybe people just give in to suffering just because they want to get inspiration out of it.
Is that what you're thinking, Tom? Yeah. But you have to come back.
No, that's one condition.
Why do you have to come back?
There's just a possibility, to come back. Just saying this.
I think it applies for news. It's making people, the public, to come back to correct something, to make the wrongs right. They intentionally let public become angry about something, and so that they can come together and unite for one single goal.
So you don't necessarily think that it's a sign of weakness to give in to your suffering. Well, but in the situations you're talking about, though, you're doing it consciously. What about somebody who doesn't want to give in to the suffering, but then does anyway? They allow the suffering to control them.
In religious practice, Eastern Orthodoxy is a religion that highly values the process of suffering, because after you go through suffering, you can find the ultimate happiness. It's the same usage of tragedy, it do clean up people's minds in some way.
Let's consider the opposite point then. Is it a sign of strength to be able to resist suffering?
Yeah, that too.
Is that a strength? What do you think? Someone who doesn't smoke. Wade or Rose, Anne, Joseph, Shiny Dream. Do you think someone is strong if they're able to resist their suffering? Joseph, I'm gonna pick on you now.
I think if people follow now, even just follow these secret, because no one has a qualification to say that you know.
Okay, but do you think that is a sign of strength then? Somebody holds their suffering, doesn't let themselves give into it? Is that how? You think it's a weakness? Oh, explain that. How's it a weakness?
If you don't want to admit this is a mistake. So,